What's good, folks? Family, friends, loved ones, enemies, frenemies, wizards, witches, muggles, mudbloods, people of Middle Earth to another episode of Disguise Coverage presented by the best pizza in Buffalo, New York, One Pie Pizza. I am your host, Anthony Prohaska. Find me on Twitter at pro__ant. That's pro 2_ANT. Find me on TikTok under the exact same handle. Again, I'm your host here on Disguise Coverage, the only podcast in existence that gives you an equal amount of blueberries in each muffin. In tonight's episode, I'm going to talk Cole Beasley, potential under the radar signing, maybe NFL wise, but for this Bills team and for Bills Mafia, very much over the radar signing and return for the Buffalo Bills and Cole Beasley. Going to dive into some game tape in terms of looking at the potential blueprint that we've seen over the last several weeks in slowing down the Miami Dolphins offense, and also bringing back some game tape from what the Buffalo Bills did in week 3 against the Miami Dolphins offense and how the Bills already have and have used that potential blueprint against Miami earlier in this year. Going to talk about the most important matchups that will decide Bills versus Dolphins. All of it with the focus of scheme, structure, X's and O's, game tape, and advanced metrics. And I've said we several times. And that's because tonight I am breaking several child labor laws, and I am bringing Mr. Kendall Mirsky onto the show, out of the doldrums, out of the shadows. My man has been swamped with life. Yeah. And I appreciate you taking the time. Welcome back to the show. It's been a while. I appreciate you. Welcome.
Yeah, it has been a minute, but it's nice to be back. I mean, despite what all of you don't know, the brief insult that I get right after you click the live button, but before we go live every single time, it's still great to be back. No one knows about it, but it happens for that like millisecond in between, right before we go live, and once you press the button. But
I was gonna do it. It's like I'm gaslighting you. So you could be like, nobody hear what he just said, and everybody's like,
no one knows what you just did to me. But it's subtle. It was assault.
It's subtle. Like I'm not gonna like stab you. I'm just gonna take like a little pin and give you like a series of little pokes. Yeah.
You're like, what the heck, dude? And everyone's like, he did nothing. Did absolutely nothing.
I'm just standing here. I don't know what you're talking about. This guy's crazy. Yeah. Oh, this is Spin with a good comment saying Kendall is finally ungrounded after breaking curfew. Yeah, he broke it several times. He's been under lock and key for a long time. Oh, you're getting some love here. Welcome back, Kendall and Cole Beasley. That's a good way to segue kind of into this first topic here. Michael says, welcome back, Cole. Cole Beasley, of course, had the press conference today speaking, and he said a lot of great things, Michael, referencing that here, saying it was awesome to hear that he regretted his decisions during his last season with us and how humbled he was. Kendall, let's lead off with that topic. The Bills bring back Cole Beasley, somebody who, man, I caught a lot of flack on Twitter this offseason talking about how it wouldn't necessarily be so easy to replicate what Cole Beasley did for the Buffalo Bills. And we've seen, you and I have talked on Twitter, over text, on this show, throughout the offseason, in the film room, just the Bills not having a consistent third option or second option, depending on how you view Gabriel Davis. But really missing that consistency piece. Jamison Crowder goes down. Even before he went down, I don't want to be disrespectful, but he wasn't bringing, necessarily a lot of consistency and production to the slot position. McKenzie has been up and down in terms of his usage, and then he gets more usage, and you're seeing drops and mistakes and miscalculations. The Bills bring back Cole Beasley, a move that he kind of hearkened for and looked for. The team seems pumped about it. Josh Allen said a lot of positive things. What are your initial thoughts and takeaways in terms of Cole Beasley coming back and what he offers to this Bills offense?
I mean, in retrospect, it seems like it was kind of a win-win in terms of like a learning experience for both sides. Like Cole learned whatever he learned through this entire time of everything that transpired during the season last year relative to halfway through this season. And then, the Bills kind of learned what life is like without Cole Beasley. And then you kind of remarry and realize, oh, okay. I mean,
should have never
broke up. Good thing going here. Yeah. Like what were we doing? I think a lot of it was what happened last season off the field. Also like the high price tag on Cole, and is he still worth it? Is he going to decline? All that stuff. And honestly, I mean, the jury's still out. We haven't seen anything really from Cole this year in terms of
he could be a complete shell of himself. And
he really could. But the real question is, relative to the Bills, is a shell of Cole Beasley still better than what we're getting in the slot right now?
Good question.
I do strongly believe that it is, because in all honesty, what we're asking from him isn't really A or S tier athleticism ask. It's more of an A or S tier mental ask. And I think
Mm.
he's still going to be up to the task in terms of what he's seeing with his eyes and how he can be on the same page mentally as Josh Allen when it comes to sitting in his zone, working past a zone defender and finding a new window, or seeing that it's man and creating an opportunity for someone else. Like there's just a lot of different things mentally that I think we were missing, I guess mentally and schematically in this
Yeah.
current offense. And I think Cole should bring some of that back.
I'm in the exact same boat. And not just because I wanted him to return all season and didn't want him to leave in the offseason. There's just been, I don't even know if it's necessarily a skill piece when it came to McKenzie or Crowder, although it is to some degree. I think at this point, there's a reason why McKenzie blows up in certain games against certain teams who have certain players and certain types of coverages, which harkens back to the conversation that we had last year, why he blew up in New England the way that he did.
And kind of did again this year a little bit.
Correct. And even against Detroit to a degree, he gets that touchdown against the Lions. And why? Because they bracket Diggs on the play and it turns into a deep over versus man coverage with a single high safety and it's a touchdown. Like that's what he's good at and that's what he does.
Exactly.
But teams don't often play the Bills that way and so on and so forth. Josh talking so positively about him, and then the reports from Louis Del Rio coming out saying that this was a move that Josh encouraged and wanted, and you heard how positive Josh Allen was in talking about Cole Beasley today, and then you just look back to, the relationship on the field and the rapport that they had over these last several years. This is, and I said this on Twitter, and I said it last night in the Cover One Film Room, this is a move towards giving Josh Allen an easy button back, and it was an easy button that he pressed a ton over these last several years. Cole Beasley was the security blanket. If you viewed him as the slot receiver or you viewed him as the number 2, he was that guy who Josh knew, okay, this play, it's a money down. I know that this guy is going to be exactly where I need him to be. He's going to see the same thing that I'm seeing at the exact same time. And I know I can get it. So if it's 3rd and 5, I know he's running this 6-yard route. I can get it to him, boom, first down, and we keep going. There's a reason why the Patriots and the Chiefs, to a degree, who did they bracket? Stephon Diggs and also Cole Beasley. There's a reason teams aimed and schemed and gamed up to try and take him away. It was because of his skill set and fit in this offense and the relationship that he had with Josh Allen. So in just a vacuum of Cole Beasley, I'm really interested to see how he separates, how he moves. What does he look like coming off the line of scrimmage? Does he still have that two-way go danger threat that he possesses at all times, just with his shiftiness and his decisiveness and suddenness in his routes, which was a true joy to watch. And like you said, the kind of, shell of himself, if he is that, which we're not saying that he is, what is that worth versus what they've had? Because even if he is that, I'll take a guy right now who knows where to settle in the zone to either get open or pull coverage and allow for routes to develop behind. There's a reason why Cole Beasley would run these option routes, and if he wasn't open, it was because guys came down on him, and then all of a sudden the intermediate is open over the top, and then Josh Allen can layer that throw. I think it has legitimate potential, and this isn't just like nostalgia or hope. I think he has legitimate potential to open up this offense a little bit, both with his ability, to have rapport with Josh Allen and make that easy button available again, but also potentially draw coverage away from Stephon Diggs, but more importantly, Gabriel Davis and even Dawson Knox, and create more space for them or one-on-one opportunities.
Yeah, I think Davis is going to be the prime beneficiary of this. I mean, let's be honest, you don't need to scheme things for Diggs to get open. He can do it on his own. But, a guy like Davis, he's going to need a little bit of scheming. He's going to need a little bit of help from his teammates. And I mean, Beasley is the guy to do it. On top of that as well, and this kind of relates a little bit to the Dolphins and simulated pressure looks, but I think it's also an extension of that check down game that can be taken away by simulated pressures. If you have to adjust the protection package that you have, and the Bills have been doing a lot of chip flats and all that kind of stuff and check and releases, all of those. Yeah, it hasn't really been working. It's just been, hey, here's a safety net, like if you need it. Josh is never going to take it. It's really not appealing. But
screw that safety net.
It's not appealing. It's not. But if you get a simulated pressure look, and we'll get to it with some of the tape today, and there's 7, 8 guys on the line of scrimmage, you might have to be like, hey, Dawson, you got to stay in to pass protect on this, or at least check and release. Same with you, Devin Singletary. And with that, you lose 2 check down options. And if they don't even bring all 7 or 8 of those guys, you just lost 2 routes ran on that play. But if you have a guy like Cole Beasley and there's 7 or 8 guys on the line of scrimmage, I'd like to think he can find a quick little soft spot in whatever coverage they're playing, dropping out of 8 guys at the line of scrimmage into 7 guys into coverage. So I think there's a lot that can kind of domino effect off of this Cole Beasley thing that isn't just wide receiver based. It can also impact what they want to do with protection calls.
I think that's a great call. And ironically, going up against a team in the Miami Dolphins who, like their simulated pressure package, and we're going to talk about it as we go forward in this episode, but what they showed in week 3, and this goes back to who they've been, granted under Brian Flores, but they've maintained a decent piece of this going forward. Their blitz package, their aggressiveness, whether they're running cover 0 or they're showing cover 0 when they drop out, and, creepers and sims and everything they do. It's not only like physically taxing on the offensive line, it's mentally taxing on the quarterback and also on your receivers. It was awesome to hear, Tavon Austin spoke about it. And then we spoke about it with Isaiah McKenzie when myself and Eric talked to him in the film room, and Isaiah Hodgins when we spoke to him in the film room.
Yeah.
The catches that seem the simplest, where it's like, oh, dude just ran like a 6-yard hitch and it was completion. There's so much that goes into that.
It's like 18 mental checks before that 6-yard completion.
It's not just like, oh, I run 6 yards and I settle down and the quarterback knows and he finds it. There's so much that has to happen, right? And there's so many moving parts and variables that are happening on every single play just for the simplest catch. Your receiver has to be reading the coverage in the same way that Josh Allen is reading it. And he has to be reading it at the same time. So that way he can run the route at the right depth, at the right level, and sit in the right spot or continue in the right spot. And Josh Allen has to know that he's going to sit in that right spot or continue in that right spot. This offense has a lot of options built into it. It has a lot of, okay, if they're in this coverage, you're doing this. If they're in this coverage, you're doing that. Ready, break. Hopefully everybody reads it and you see what happens. And especially with what we've seen this year tying into Ken Dorsey, who a lot of the offense this year has been, hey, Josh, here's the play, read the coverage, get through your progressions, find it. If not, scramble and make something happen. Yeah. We've seen less designers, we've seen less gadgetry, we've seen less window dressing. And by window dressing, I mean motion and play action that we have in years past. It's been more just like, hey, Josh, go read it out and make a play and make something happen.
Right.
When you do that, you need receivers who can also read it out, who can also make something happen. And with how much zone coverage the Bills see, I think he has a real opportunity to just, at the very least, be that security blanket who, he had 5 catches for 38 yards, but 4 out of the 5 were for first downs and they kept the chains moving. Fine, I'll take it. I'm very interested to see from a juice perspective, can he still be the man beater that he was in years past, where if you put him one-on-one in the slot, it was just almost a death sentence for opposing slot defenders, linebackers, anybody who got matched up against him. And peek behind the scenes, I am now scrolling on Twitter for a Cole Beasley tweet that I put out yesterday. Yes, because I want to put this out because I know there was narratives going on through the offseason of, oh, last year he was a shell of himself and he couldn't beat man and he couldn't separate. And granted, not saying he's the same player that he was last year, but last year of the wide receivers that had at least 30 targets in 2021, Cole Beasley had the 3rd highest reception percentage versus zone coverage at 81.3%, and he had the 6th highest reception percentage versus man coverage at 70%. Also keep in mind, he did a majority of that while he had multiple broken ribs and was unable to move and breathe and couldn't really take a hit. Also remember how he performed down the stretch the previous year, even while he had a broken leg. Yep. Dude's a gamer. His teammates love him. And from a nostalgia factor, it's cool. I can legitimately imagine what the stadium's going to sound like when he catches that first pass on Saturday. The bees that is going to erupt. Yeah. I also think if I'm a bettor, I'm putting money on an anytime touchdown for Cole Beasley. If they get into the red zone, I really think they're going to look to Beasley and try and get the ball for that nice little piece. So that's a cool aspect as well if you're kind of thinking with your heart. But yes, schematically and structurally, you have the opportunity to have somebody who could potentially be a man beater again on the inside from that slot position. But more importantly, Josh Allen said it. It's words we use all the time: leverage space and reading coverage and trust and security. He's that guy. We know Josh will force the ball to Stephon Diggs because that's his dude. Beasley is right up there with him. Like, I think it would legitimately be hard for Josh Allen if he had to say, if you asked him like behind closed doors, who do you trust more, Diggs or Beasley? I think he would have to think about it
Yeah,
legitimately.
like 3rd and 5, who you throwing to? I'm
Gun
not
to your
giving you
head, pick.
coverage. Just like pick a wide receiver. Which one do you trust more with this 3rd and 5?
And
I
that's a,
think
and I
it's a
don't think
toss
that's
up.
and I don't think that's a knock to Diggs. I think that's a
No.
credit to how good Cole Beasley's been for this
Yeah.
team. And so you get somebody who, again, knows the offense to a degree. Granted, like Dorsey's offense is different from Brian Dable's, but there's going to be some sort of overlap. I expect him to have a package and getting into this game this year. It's nice to see. And I also think it's cool from, again, a heartwarming perspective. The separation was not great. You heard everything that Beasley said today about what he was going through and off the field and on the field, and just had that separation. He wanted to come back, and everybody's best friends now. And we get to see what potentially happens on the field.
Little piece that we didn't mention. I low-key love what this means for Khalil Shakir down the stretch.
Ooh, talk about it.
Just later, I mean, what he's going to learn from him, I think it's just invaluable. Like, think about what Von Miller has done for the young guys in Groot and Epinesa and Basham. While sure, Epinesa and Basham aren't to everyone's expectations, I mean, Groot has taken an absolutely massive leap, and I'm not going to sit here and project that same type of thing.
So
with
was
Beasley and
Epinesa.
Shakir,
Like real technique.
Epinesa has definitely, and Basham, like they have all taken steps, not to the level of Groot, but all taken steps. And I think you can project some of that, maybe not to the same extent, but you can project that same kind of philosophy of what Cole Beasley is going to pass down to the rest of the wide receiver group. And obviously it's not a necessarily young group. I mean, it's Gabe Davis and Shakir as the youngest guys. And I'd like to think Davis has already soaked up everything he can from Cole Beasley to this point. But Shakir, not so much. He's never played with the guy. So I think there's a lot to learn in that regard. And I think while it might mean Shakir isn't going to get a lot of playing time this year, I think it means a lot of positive things for next year and what he could progress to be then.
1,000%. You know, we, granted, maybe it necessarily didn't manifest this year for him, but we heard from Isaiah McKenzie how much he studied Cole Beasley tape along with Devontae Adams tape, and how much he tried to learn and soak up from Cole Beasley. And you legitimately, even though he didn't, become the receiver that I think fans wanted him to be this year so far, you saw an improvement in his game. Correct. And I think Shakir's ceiling is higher than McKenzie's and has been. Granted, you and I both loved him as we scouted him in our evaluation for the draft. So I think that's a real positive trickle-down effect that you could see. Want to grab this question from Spin. He said, how much will Beasley even be used in the offense against Miami? Will it be similar to John Brown's involvement, which is pretty much minimal and have no impact, or will Beasley actually have a role? From what I've heard from the insiders of the media world, they expect Cole Beasley to play this week. Louis Del Rio talked about it last night with us, that they expect for him to have a package in this game. I think he suits up against Miami. Now, how much he gets used, we'll see. I think it's going to be package based. I don't think he's a dude that it's like, hey, sweet, go out there for 70% of the reps and we'll see what happens. Ready, break. But I think just especially in terms as going forward, I think this week has more variable for me. But I think going forward, if you have to take like, oh, who's going to have a larger workload in this offense, I think the pendulum is swinging far heavily in the favor of Cole Beasley. I expect him to be getting significant reps as we move forward. Maybe if it doesn't happen this week, fine, fair. But going forward, I think he's going to be right back in that role. It's a different level of trust and need for Cole Beasley in this offense and with Josh Allen than John Brown.
Yeah, I also think what they're asking Beasley to do versus what they're asking John Brown to do is a little bit easier in terms of coming in and impacting right away. I think a lot of what they're asking the slot receiver to do is very just like read the defense. You have a lot of options here, and it's all going to be based on how you read the defense and what you see in coverage. Versus John Brown is like, all right, you have a locked route on this or something like that, or whatever it could be. I think there's just a little bit more where it's like you have to learn the finite rules of the playbook to play the X position versus, whatever Cole Beasley has to do in the slot. So I think in terms of like acclimation and getting on the field and ramping up to, 100%, I think it'll be a little bit quicker for Beasley just because of the different roles, but it's really tough to project what's going to happen this week specifically. You're on mute.
This hasn't happened to me at all since you've last been on the show. So
because
legitimately
what would you mute for?
I have other guests. You're not the only guest I have on the show.
No, it's only me. It's only
You're
me.
done. You know
My
what?
world.
This I don't know what I was thinking. You're done. It's a horrible decision. I love this comment from Jason, and it ties into what we were saying. Jason says, all this tells me how truly unique Bees' skill set is, and that of any true wide receiver or slot wide receiver. And for him, Crowder falls into that too. You can't just throw a fast guy there and expect it to work. So much detail. Yes. And that's something I said with the McKenzie piece. Everybody kept talking, well, his agility and his speed, it's going to open up this offense. Route running nuance is a huge, huge piece of receiver game in general, but especially in the slot. When you are working on the interior, you have the advantage because you have the two-way go, which is tremendous. But you also have the disadvantage of having to work in heavy traffic areas. You are closer to the formation, which means you are closer to the big thumpers like the linebackers or defensive ends. It's easy for you to get potentially bumped. You have to work through trash, read coverage faster. A lot of times you're the hot route guy, which means you need to read something in the blink of an eye and turn and get your body into position. It's mentally taxing in addition to the physical technical aspect that is required and asked of you. So yes, excellent comment from Jason. Any last thoughts on Cole Beasley, Kendall, before we move on?
No, not really. I'm excited though. I think this is big for the team, and you kind of get one of those puzzle pieces back at a much more reasonable price for the home stretch. It kind of worked out in a weird way where we're 10-3 and we got the guy back that we kind of needed this whole time, but at a big fraction of the cost.
Absolutely. I'm going to do a quick sponsor read for One Pie Pizza, not just because they're the sponsor, because they're the best pizza in Buffalo, New York. Fantastic cheese to sauce ratio, cup of char pepperoni, homemade blue cheese, but Toys for Tots. Their drive ends this Sunday. It's been going on. Do some good for the community. Go get yourself a pizza, drop off some toys for the tots for the children. And also, if you do, you get entered into a raffle with some pretty awesome prizes. First place is a Josh Allen signed helmet, which has a $750 value. Second place is a half sheet pizza for a year. So you get 12 half sheets, a $300 value. Fantastic. Third place is 2 Sabres tickets. So if you're selfish and you want to give toys for children just to get a potential gift out of it, you got a Josh Allen signed helmet, free pizza for a year, basically 12 free half sheet pies, which they feed 2 people pretty easily multiple times, or free Sabres tickets as the third prize.
It's a beautiful incentive plan.
Huge incentive plan from the folks at One Pie Pizza. Again, they do this all year round. Toys for Tots, the ASPCA, Alzheimer's Foundation, they do a lot for the community. Trying to knock out cancer and partnering with Roswell come October and fall time. So go out, get yourself some One Pie Pizza. Treat yourself and the family and your taste buds to some deliciousness. The best pizza in Buffalo, New York. The online menu can be found in the episode show notes. And do some good for the community. The holidays aren't as great for everyone as they may be for you and your individual self, your individual family. So if you can take the kindness out of your day and your heart to drop off a toy ASAP before Sunday, you do some good for the community and for some kids. And also, again, if you're selfish, which is fine, you also get an opportunity to win some pretty cool gear and some pretty cool merch or awesome free pizza. So go do that. You can also find more, again, see their Twitter handle at One Pie Pizza WNY. I'll also be tweeting out more stuff about it tonight and throughout the days. Please, thank you. Go get yourself some One Pie and do some good for the community while you are at it. Kendall, let's pivot now. The conversation about the Miami Dolphins. We've seen these last couple of weeks as the Dolphins lost their games to the San Francisco 49ers and to the Los Angeles Chargers. We've seen this conversation now about the potential blueprint for slowing down or even stopping the Miami Dolphins offense. We saw what the 49ers did. We saw what the Chargers did. And what it's come down for everyone is, you got to press the receivers, get in their face, disrupt the timing, disrupt the opportunity for Tua to make these window throws, press. I wonder if the Bills will do that. I wonder if the Bills will do press because they don't press. What do we think? The Bills did that in week 3, which is something we're going to talk about and show you folks. We're going to dive into some game film from the Bills' defensive game plan against the Miami Dolphins in week 3. We're also going to show you some game film from the San Francisco 49ers versus the Miami Dolphins and the Los Angeles Chargers versus the Miami Dolphins. But as we start to kind of matriculate forward and move this conversation, what are your thoughts about this potential blueprint or how teams have fared against Miami these last couple of weeks with the Chargers and the Niners, but also with what the Bills did in week 3? Because the Bills played this defense well. 2 of Miami's touchdowns, the first one was right off that strip sack of Josh Allen that the drive started in the red zone. And then another one was on the 3rd and 22 home run shot to Hill that beat the Bills cover 2 coverage, which Miami has hit like 95 times this year against everyone.
Yeah.
So not to take those away, but if you, and I hate doing this, but if you remove those 2 big plays, the Bills defense contained Miami. And this was without Jordan Poyer, without Trey White. The starting corners in that game were Kyer Elam and Christian Benford. Christian Benford went down in the second quarter. The corners from the majority of this game were Jamarcus Ingram and Kyer Elam. The safeties were DeMar Hamlin and Jaquan Johnson. A lot of reinforcements coming back for this group now, although they will be down Von Miller. So the Bills, again, the Bills are in that mold of providing the blueprint already for stopping the Miami Dolphins. They have that blueprint. They did use it to a degree, but we've seen potentially more success recently from a national perspective with what the Niners and Chargers did. What's your thought about all this? Are you focusing on the coverage piece? If you are, where? Are you focusing on the pass rush piece, which is tremendously important, which we're going to talk about as well? Where's your head at with all this, kind of blueprint talk of defending the Dolphins offense?
I mean, I just think the blueprint talk every single year, it's always really silly because there's no such thing as like the blueprint. Everyone is making counter punches all the time. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if this Dolphins offense starts doing some different things this week because they just dropped 2 games in a row, very important games. They dropped 2 in a row, and now they're facing the Bills. Where
Jason hit it right there. I feel like Miami will make an adjustment.
Changes.
Yeah,
exactly. So, like, if they were keeping some things up their sleeves for later in the season, like right now, it makes sense to be the moment to use those adjustments and throw the entire NFL off the path that they were following. Everyone's like, oh, okay, so this is how you stop the defense. That's when you throw the curveball. That's when you just start making adjustments. So I wouldn't be shocked if that happens this week, but I talked to you about it pre-show, and I think the main thing is that, yes, press is important, and it's a part of this, but I feel like it's just kind of low-hanging fruit for a timing-based offense and, jam up the wide receivers and get physical with these smaller guys, and you're going to make it harder for the timing to work out and all of that kind of stuff. That is fair. That is true. And that is a part of it, but it's just a piece of the puzzle, in my opinion. And I think you have to start talking about how pass rush is affecting the quarterback and the timing in that regard. And then on top of that, all of the eye candy and the motion and the beneath routes behind the line of scrimmage, like all of these things that happen behind the line of scrimmage and the RPOs, it is so much more than just disrupt the timing. And you'll beat this offense. It is so mentally challenging to play against this offense because they give you so many variants of different plays from the same look and in different personnels. Like, it's literally the same play, but it has, like, I swear to God, 180 variants.
They get to it from like so many. It starts in a 3-by-1 and then they run the same play. Again, we're going to show you folks this in a minute.
Ridiculous.
But they'll be in a 3-by-1. They'll show it. They'll be in a 2 running back set, split back. They'll do it. They'll be in a 2-by-2. They'll motion. They'll do it. You're just like, and at every post snap,
doesn't matter if it's Ingold or if it's Gesicki.
No.
Like, they will shuffle anything and they get to the same thing.
Different alignments, different personnel, like, and they're always running like an A route, a B route, and a C route. But anybody can run the A, anybody can run the B, anybody can run the C, and they'll vary who it is. And when you vary who it is, it stresses the defense differently.
And it's like a quadruple option every single play. Every single play is like a modern quintuple. I'm gonna keep raising the number, but it's just an unlimited option play for Tua, like every single time, and it's really wild, and it plays into the anticipation and the mental processing piece that Tua is so great with. But that's what makes this offense hum. The fact that he can anticipate where the defenders are pre-snap versus post-snap. He knows the play. He knows the options to each play. And I think as much as this is a schematic, if you just press, if you just do this with the pass rush, I think a lot of this too comes down to just being mentally tough. How great are you going to be communicating on the back end? How is your eye discipline with all of the motion? I think all of it pieced together is the blueprint. And at that point, like, this isn't a blueprint. This is just A+ execution.
Yeah, and certain pieces that work against like everyone. Like,
exactly.
You mean to tell me good coverage and pass rush like
works
and stop an offense? It stops Miami. It's like, well, it stops everyone. So fair.
Exactly. So that's why I think the blueprint thing is a little corny. It's a little media driven, but I get it. It's a nice way to like tie a bow on it.
And again, it's understandable to a degree. Like this offense was
Yeah.
setting the world on fire with where Tua was in terms of EPA, with what this offense was in terms of points, and Tyreek Hill potentially flirting with a 2,000-yard receiving season, and him and Waddle, all the yardage and the touchdowns and the explosive plays. Like it's all sexy and it's all flashy. And then all of a sudden, it seems like that offense comes crashing down back-to-back weeks. So all of a sudden it's like that story. Well, like, wow, how did this happen? Like, how did the satellite fall from the sky? We have to talk about how it fell from the sky. And I also think too, some of it is like, I don't want to pile on Miami because again, I always thought Tua was better than Bills fans gave him credit for. And I think Hill and Waddle are tremendous, although I'm definitely not a fan of Tyreek Hill as a person. But
it's neither here nor there.
No, that's neither here nor there. But I also think some of like their craziness on offense, like they played bad defenses for a long time, and they had several games that they almost lost because their defense was kind of all over the place. And so there's a lot of wonkiness when it comes to the Miami Dolphins. But the first piece we're going to talk about and show you folks here is what the San Francisco 49ers did against the Miami Dolphins offense. So again, this matchup was 2 weeks ago, and the 49ers defense, I also feel a bit vindicated because when we were doing the episode of Cover One Football Weekly, the night of the Chiefs beating the Niners, and all the people that came in to tell us that the Niners defense were frauds, and they were fake, and nobody was taking into account like, well, they've got like 7 starters that are hurt, and
now they're winning with Brock Purdy, and it's like, guys, this team is holistically
all the
really
people,
good,
all
even
the people
before McCaffrey.
Correct. And all the people in the comments who were like, the Niners suck. Like, I don't know why you guys like them, yada, yada. I feel so vindicated by this. But this 49ers defense, my favorite line for talking about like how they play, like the 49ers play defense, like how Velociraptors would play defense if they played football.
You say this, I can't help but just single out Hufanga. I can't help it, but he's like the one that drives.
The one for me that does it is Greenlaw. Greenlaw is just running everywhere trying to rip someone's face off. And you saw multiple times in this game, the 4th down stop on Gesicki, the play before on Hill. They're a monster of a defense, right? They got talent at every level. They've got depth. They're 2nd in defensive DVOA overall, 5th against the pass, 2nd against the rush. But what they did in this game against the Miami Dolphins is no secret at this point. They were physical in their rerouting of the Miami wide receivers. They pressed Miami, especially on the single wide receiver side. Keep that in mind. We're going to show you folks some of that in the film. But what they did is they coupled it with their identity, which is they play a lot of 2 high coverages. They play a lot of quarters, and a lot of zone. They were that in this game. 89% zone coverage against the Miami Dolphins in this game. 76% middle of the field open coverages. So those are your 2 high looks. And they played a lot of quarters, a lot of cover 2. They also played some cover 3. But again, predominantly zone and 2 high looks. 89% 4-man rush, which is easy when you've got Ebukam and Bosa and Armstead, and just, God, they've got so much talent. And they've lost talent, but they just keep being nasty. This one's also a cool stat. 0% stacked boxes against the Miami Dolphins. Not one snap had more than 7 men in the box against the Miami Dolphins.
I mean, makes sense. They haven't ran well.
No. But it's interesting that like Miami wasn't like, well, maybe we should try and test that a little bit. They didn't. They tried to pass a ton like they did against the Chargers, and it bit them in the butt a little bit. 47% 7-man boxes for the Niners, 53% light boxes. And a big thing to keep in mind with this game, major credit to the 49ers, their pass rush, their game plan, their physicality on all 3 levels, their coverage, their execution. But a huge piece to keep in mind, and again, we're going to show it in the film, a lot of the mistakes in this game, not a lot, but there were a significant amount of unforced errors from Tua in this game. Plays that were there, and he had guys open, and he just missed throws. Short, intermediate, deep. And granted, you have to give credit to the Niners. Maybe the call they had confused him, or there was enough coverage layered in to kind of make him sail a throw.
Or pressure.
Yes, pressure, 1,000%. But there were certain throws where he had all the time in the world, and he was just missing. The interception for Lenore, he rolls out, and he's got Hill like 7 yards away, and he just throws it like 2 yards behind him, and it gets tipped up in the air and gets intercepted. Tua was not sharp in this game, but San Francisco's pressure plus coverage significantly contributed to that. But Tua did have a lot of unforced errors. Kendall, should we dive into the film?
Yeah, I'm down.
I don't think I'm down. Let's not do film. Let's lie.
All right, let's scrap it.
We're not going to do it. All right, we're going to start here with the film as I find my screen, which is misleading me at this moment. There we go. Boom. Okay. First one we got here. Play 3. Kendall, this one, gives some people a peek behind the curtain. We were talking about the coverage on this one.
Like 10 minutes.
Yeah, for like 10 minutes, whether it was quarters with a meg call or a cover 3 cloud aspect. There are some similarities. We settled on my initial take, which was quarters with meg, but it's up for discussion, 1,000%. But
this guy's an idiot for even bringing up cover 3 cloud.
What a clown! What a terrible. No, there is. Also, I feel like we're using all these terms. People like someone in the back is like, "What's
what
cover
are you
3
talking
cloud?"
about?
Yeah. We're going to talk about it as we go through here. But Kendall, I'm going to let you lead with this one because Fred Warner makes a tremendous play, and one of the things you wanted to talk about when we talk about the Niners piece here is their second level play. But basically, what we're going to get here is you get quarters coverage with a meg call up here. It would be help if I clicked here so that way people could see when I circle things. So you get a meg call, which is man everywhere he goes. So basically, this is one-on-one man coverage here. And then you get quarters coverage the rest of the way. You get really good pressure from Nick Bosa up here, who's going to get chipped and turns it into a spin move and gets pressure on Tua. And then you get a great pass breakup from Fred Warner on this play.
So with the quarters coverage here, the bottom side safety is really going to take whatever is deepest and in breaking on that side. And he doesn't really get it until late. And it turns out to be Tyreek Hill just screaming by him. But the beautiful part about this scheme, and I mean, what Miami loves to do is these deep ins, and off of a go ball like that, you run the dagger behind it, and there's, schemed up to be wide open. But the beautiful part about this play and how San Francisco defended this, and I think they probably had a game plan to do this at the second level because it showed up a few times on tape. These second level linebackers dropped with so much depth in this game, and it influenced passing windows, how Tua wanted to layer the ball in there, all of these types of things. And then on this play, there's just clear ball production where Warner gets his hand on the football. But this is perfectly schemed against this coverage too. Like, this should work every time. But because of how deep Warner gets and the eyes that he has to identify the dig route coming out of this bunch over here from the bottom side of your screen.
Yeah, you see him peeping this right away to see who he's got to pick up and carry.
And he sees Hill just go straight by him, and he's like, all right, it's not that guy. Keeps his eyes to his left, and he sees, I think it's Sherfield come across
I like
the field.
Sherfield. Sherfield doesn't get talked about a lot, but I like him.
He's been doing all the right things for them. He says all the right things.
Nice.
But the main thing with this is really how this is schemed up to be a win for Miami. Like, this is the right play call against the right play call. But sometimes players win out, and little adjustments, little turning of the dials win out. And I think in this week, the 49ers realized the game plan. All right, Miami loves these deep ins, deep crossers, anything to stress the middle of the field. And we like to keep the middle of the field open. We got to drop these second level linebackers and force Tua to take what we give him underneath. And if he doesn't want to take that and he gets greedy, then we'll make him pay. And on a play like this, Warner makes him pay. Could have turned into an interception with how he tipped it. But still a net zero on this play is a W for the 49ers. So really excellent job by him, and something I'd like to see the Bills utilize this week in terms of how deep they're dropping that second level. And we can relate that a little bit when we get to the Bills week 3 tape versus the Dolphins.
This is a coverage you'll see for the Bills. The Bills, again, this isn't unique to the Niners or the Bills. When you have quarters against a 3-by-1, they'll often play this Meg, again, man everywhere he goes. But all you need to know or think about with Meg is basically like one-on-one coverage. What we have in this instance is that one-on-one coverage, and then Gibson, again, this is Waddle over here, just at the top, just in case people don't know. And then Gibson plays him over the top, and Lenore almost gets in like a trail technique, and they play this as almost like a 2-on-1 to take away Waddle, which again makes sense. Lenore, no disrespect, is a depth guy who's been forced to play because the Niners have suffered injuries on the back end. And then you've got the coverage numbers advantage on the other side with Warner and Ward, actually both Wards, Jimmy and Charvarius. So you got that quarters look. Bosa really makes this play. Watch him get chipped. And he gets chipped, and he turns the chip into a spin. And then it ends like it. I don't think this was planned, but it basically functions like a stunt in a game
Yeah, it does.
because
Yeah.
he ends up looping around the man. It's almost like a spiker and a looper, and then he comes screaming in on Tua. So right here, Tua has to throw the ball. And this is where we always talk about the relationship of coverage and pass rush. Hufanga was sitting on this route from Hill. I think, and this is something Miami does, they'll run Hill deep and then they'll sit him down, like right
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
I think Hufanga's betting on that in this play. But watch Tyreek Hill. He's not sitting, and he burst by Hufanga, but Tua can't get there because of the pressure from Nick Bosa. And also, this is a piece, Kendall, you narrated it perfectly. The only thing I wanted to add with it is, Tua has been, Ben Solak has talked about this. Seth Galina has talked about it. Nate Tice has talked about it. Tua is a window thrower. He has been trained by McDaniel to, okay, here's what you do. Set hike, do this run action or this play action, 1, 2, 3, throw to this spot. This is where the window's
right
going to be.
Between these two defenders.
Exactly. It's almost like if anybody played Madden for Sega Genesis, like that's what it was. You had your passing windows, A, B, and C, and you press C, and you're throwing it to that window. So he's expecting this window to be open. He's expecting to have sure field. And also, I mean, he doesn't really have a huge option in this instance because Waddle is covered up top. He doesn't get the opportunity to see Hill because he's got Bosa flashing in his face and about to take him down. But this is what you'll see from the Bills when they run these coverages. Like Tremaine Edmonds is that wall defender on the inside in a multitude of their looks, especially when they're playing match coverages. And he'll carry that defender. Like this is going to be Tremaine Edmonds on Sunday. And actually, Warner, when healthy, it's between Warner and Shaquille Leonard for who's the best off-ball linebacker in the NFL. Right now, it's Warner because Leonard is hurt.
Literally not healthy.
Correct. But if this play happens, this might actually be an interception for Edmonds because Edmonds doesn't have to jump because he's taller and has pterodactyl wings for arms. But this is going to have to be Edmonds. Like having to get that depth, having to pick up those in-breakers and continuing to carry them in whatever coverage that the Bills are running. But the Bills love it. They love quarters. They love running too high looks. They'll run, again, they mix it up a bunch, disguise coverage, the name of the show for a reason, in terms of showing too high shells and spitting down to a single high safety look. They'll run combo coverages. They'll run cover 1, 3, 4, 2, Tampa 2, 6. They'll run match out of it. They'll run spot drop. They run a lot. But Tremaine Edmonds has been so good for years carrying carrying receivers, I should say, in the middle of the field. This is going to be a Tremaine Edmonds piece right now in this game potentially. And also, again, maybe you see a little more shading. If this is the Bills, this safety is usually going to stay here and he's going to be looking to poach.
Yeah, pick up whatever's crossing.
Correct. Again,
and that's why I was so shocked with this call. I was like, is this quarters or is this cloud? And because I would think that safety would rob the dagger.
Being completely correct on coverages can be tough at point, even to like the trained eye. Like it's legitimately like a tough thing. And unless you really know, not to mention too, so many coverages, especially when you get into matches, and especially quarters, like so much of it is rules based and scheme based. Like this week we're playing this version of quarters when we get 3x1. Next week, there's different skill sets and people. So we're going to do this versus 3x1, or we're going to alter it and tweak it. So there are little differences in rules and pieces, but you see that piece from the Niners. Again, this is a good scheme, but it's just having the horses to do it. You get Bosa with the pressure up front and you get Warner making a great play in the deep middle right there. So kudos to the 49ers for their execution on that piece. In my notes on this play, it just says Warner being awesome.
Well,
that's all I wrote.
That's pretty much it. That sums it up.
Which is fair. All right, now let's go to the next play here on our play sheet of sorts here. Got the 49ers in cover 3 in this one. Again, a single high coverage. One of the few times they ran cover 3 in this game. You're going to get Fred Warner operating with depth. But the key here is Tua misses this throw. Waddle has tons of space. But also a key piece I want you guys to focus in on. So the 49ers pressed in this game a lot. And you're going to see it here on this play. You're going to see Charvarius Ward down here on Jalen Waddle. He's in press. But watch what happens when you get the fake motion from Tyreek Hill coming across the field. The Niners would press this single receiver side a bunch. The Bills did this very same thing a lot in week 3, especially with Christian Benford. And even when Benford went out, they did it with Elam and they did it with Jamarcus Ingram. They would still, press across the board at times or press both outside receivers. But if they got that single receiver side, they would press. Watch Hill come in motion and watch what Charvarius Ward does. He's already peeking in the backfield because he sees the motion or he hears Tua, call for it. And watch Ward drop off. He sees, oh, Hill's coming all the way across. Okay, cool. I'm dropping out. Oh, Hill's going back. So I'm coming back up to press the single receiver side. So now you get cover 3. You don't get you get more of a soft shoe press. Maybe Ward wanted to go with the jam, but Hill was too quick off the line. So you get Ward mirroring Waddle off the line of scrimmage as we go forward here. But again, the Niners get depth at the second level. Warner gets depth, so you have to give him credit. But look at the pocket. This pocket is gorgeous. Mm-hmm. It's beautiful. There is no one within an earshot of Tua. Waddle's going across the field. This is an easy completion, and he airmails it. Now, I think part of that, again, is because of the depth of Warner, which is fair. And when we watch it from the end zone angle, you'll see he's underneath there. But with how things were cleared out up top, Miami does this all the time, whether it's a dagger concept or it's double posts or levels and all these pieces. They love, because they have the speed to do it, they'll run Tyreek Hill up here and then bring a route in behind him. Again, like a dagger concept where you have the vertical and then you have the inbreaker coming behind it with the dig. They will use clear out routes all day, and defenses have to respect it, because if Jalen Waddle or Tyreek Hill are running full speed at you, you're going to go, uh-oh, and you're going to run full speed with them. And so they're pulling defenders from these zones. When they pull those defenders, Miami runs another guy into that now vacated zone, and they get open guys. So you look at the presence here. Gibson is bailing. The other corner, Lenore, is bailing. Also, what's underrated on this play, I want to grab this piece from Charvarius Ward. He recognizes the crosser coming, so he passes off Waddle, and he sits to pick up this crosser, which is a good piece from Charvarius Ward. But because he does that, again, there's that vacated space. So watch Ward at the bottom of the field. Oh, I was going to drop off. Now I'm impressed. Okay, he's reading Waddle, reads him, starts to go with him, sees the crosser, so he drops off and picks him up. But now Waddle is completely uncovered. And because this is cleared out, all he has to do is lead him a little more this way or drop it a little more in the bucket, and he airmails it. And this is, again, credit to Warner. You got to credit the depth and the execution from the Niners on this one. And as we see it from the end zone angle, you'll see that Warner is in that window underneath, and Tua does need to layer this throw. But this is a completion that most NFL quarterbacks, including Tua this year, has made.
He's made this throw.
Yeah, time and time again. And Waddle's got some bunnies to him. He's got hops, and he goes up for it, and he cannot get this.
Yeah, I mean, you hit a lot of the points home. I mean, this is cover 3. This is a route that's supposed to work against it. And I mean, like we talked about before, I mean, Tua has been off the past couple of weeks, and whatever reason that is, his accuracy has been, something left to be desired a little bit these past few weeks. And this is another example of that. But yeah, it just goes to drive home that point again of how important that second level is going to be, especially if you're trying to play any cover 3. If you want to play cover 3, I'm sorry, you're probably going to have to forfeit those checkdowns. You're going to have to give them those checkdowns and take away those passing windows, because Warner didn't take it away, but I'd like to think he had some influence there.
I would say that he influenced it. I think that's a good way to say it, and he needed to, because as you hit on it, cover 3, where is two of the major vulnerabilities? You're vulnerable to deep crossers, and you're vulnerable in the seams. And this is a deep crosser from Waddle, and it's wide open, and Tua misses it.
And it's in the position of where a seam route would be.
I was also getting, it's
like on the numbers
window, correct? So it's almost like a 2-for-1 in terms of the vulnerability piece. Yeah,
you can see here, they left the check down open. Tua had an option to just take what the defense gave him. Granted, it was a late check and release, but that's kind of the point. You kind of have to make them work methodically, and also the middle of the field. There's one in between.
Oh, there's a little guy here.
That guy right there.
I stopped looking, and I was watching Tashawn Gibson's footwork, and I zoned out with what you were saying. So I circled him up here, and I just zoned
check
out.
Down.
And I was like, what? I stopped paying attention. I'm so sorry. Yeah. But also, that's also Tua hasn't lived that way all year.
No,
Anytime
and he hasn't had to.
Exactly.
He hasn't had to.
Anytime he's wanted, try and do this with your camera. Yep, there you go. Anytime he's wanted those deep chunks, he's got them. Anytime he's wanted the intermediate, he's got it. Anytime he's had those vertical shots or wanted them, he's got it. He hasn't had to live in the check down world. He hasn't had to live in the stay ahead of the sticks world, because even when it's like 3rd and 14, he'll be like, it's cool. We're going to complete a 27-yarder and we'll be fine. So it's a legit adjustment period for him. And that's something we're going to talk about. Like, because one of the adjustments that he can make is start taking some of those checkdowns. So on 1st and 10, don't look for the 17-yard dig. Just dump it off and get 4 or 5 yards, and all of a sudden it's 2nd and 5, or all of a sudden it's 2nd and 6. Those are there for him. He just hasn't been taking them. That's an easy potential remedy. If I'm Mike McDaniel, and I'm not, and he's a tremendous offensive coach, I think that's one of their pieces where they start to run more options underneath to create opportunities for him. Man, your camera just hates you. To create some of those opportunities for him to, again, it's not sexy. And maybe, again, I don't think it's something that he's used to, but maybe this week, instead of this throw, he's like, you know what? Cool. I'm going to go right here.
Yep. And that's part of the idea of, we just dropped 2 games. We could have won. This is a supremely important game. If we take 2 against the Bills this year, changes the divisional outlook, put the entire conference outlook. It could be the time where they start throwing some curveballs and he starts kind of learning from those little mistakes. And even it's wild to say, because like we just alluded to, this isn't necessarily a mistake in terms of decision making. It's just a lower percentage throw.
And it's poor execution. Like, he misses this throw. If you're Mike McDaniel, you're like, oh, that was a good call and we got it, but we didn't get it. Like, that's
exactly
unfortunate. Live by the sword, die by the sword in that aspect. Again, this is, and maybe you also want to play the other side and be like, well, maybe this is regression towards the mean, because he's hit this so much. It's like you and I have talked about in different conversations. It's like touchdown regression. Like, you got a running back on your fantasy team who keeps scoring a touchdown inside the 5 for the first 6 weeks in the league. It's like, well, the odds of that continuing to happen are not going to continue to happen.
Well, talk to Jamal Williams about that.
That's fair. Or I was thinking the opposite of Julio all those years, when it was like, well, he's bound to get in the end zone next year. And then it was like, nope, he's just going to keep getting like 1 or 2 every time. All right, next play here. So this is nothing crazy here. Cover 2 from the 49ers, but just another example of, again, don't want to take away anything from the Niners, but an unforced error in theory from Tua here. Look at all the oof. So again, cover 2. So Lenore's sitting there on Sherfield. This is open even for college, but for the NFL, this is wide the hell open. Just ridiculous. And Tua
kind of airmails it.
Sails it again. Yeah. And again, maybe it's because those underneath defenders are in his head a little bit, but this is there. You get that RPO action, and he reads it out decently. You see from the end zone angle, like, he starts out on the right, he's reading it, or maybe this is what he was taught, and it's like, read to the right and then come back to the left and it'll be there. But I think he's truly reading this post snap. Doesn't get his feet set tremendously. He's open to the throw. He's not stepping into it. It's all arm and upper body, which also contributes to, I think, the inaccuracy on this throw. But you have to give credit to the defense in some regard. Again, Bosa,
relentless.
God, Bosa is just ridiculous. Watch, just in case people here's Mr. Nick Bosa. Watch him just. No, cool. I'm gonna hop over you, get up, and just run at you like a raptor, and that influences the throw 1,000%. So you have to give credit for the underneath coverage and to Bosa, but this is a completion that an NFL quarterback has to make. This is open.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was schemed up well. You get the guy in motion to take that flat defender out of this play, essentially. And yeah, I mean, it's just a wide open hole shot, and he just misses it. Really not much more to break down other than, like you said, with the mechanics and how the pressure can somewhat influence those mechanics. I mean, Ingold didn't get a clean piece of Bosa, but I mean, that's probably more on Bosa than it is Ingold. I mean, that's just a really great play to elude that cut block there. So, I mean, really not much to break down. Just an example of how Tua has been slightly off the past 2 weeks. And he's made throws under pressure this season. It's not like, you get him under pressure and this is guaranteed. It's just, you have a higher percentage chance for something like this to happen when you get pressure on the quarterback. But yeah, he's just been off.
I hate Tua's wristband and how I'm going to stop it when he does the motion.
It's
thing open. I hate it. I hate it. It's my second biggest pet peeve in the NFL. You know what my first one is? Guys like Stephon Diggs who don't put the mouthpiece in their mouth
Ooh,
and it's
that
just dangling
bothers
from their
me
face
too,
mask.
yeah.
I also don't get how it's not distracting.
I was
Like,
gonna say that too. I don't know how you track
hand-eye
the football
coordination.
with
Like,
that
what are you
thing
doing?
going in front of your visor.
I also just think, like, then don't wear a mouthpiece. What are we doing? And so many guys do it. I'm like, is it fashion?
It might
Do you
be required to have it on your helmet, or like if you don't have it on your helmet, you have to have one
in your
at
mouth?
all. So like having it
Oh,
on the helmet,
drives
it
me nuts.
satisfies the rule.
His stupid play sheet is always open. It drives me nuts. And it always seems like it's too big for his wrist. Like it's gonna fall off his hand. I'm like, get a smaller one. That's what we're gonna break down. The rest of this episode is breaking down
How
things that
Tua
annoy us.
is too big for his
Yeah.
britches.
All right. Now, this is the play that Miami runs all the time, some sort of action. So this RPO action,
The
you know,
quintuple option.
quintuple option. They'll sometimes run like a true RPO out of it, and Tua will read this defensive end legitimately. And if he crashes, he'll run the rest of the play. If he stays out, he'll give to the running back. There's a lot of different things that can come from it. Or sometimes, again, they'll just use the RPO action, but it's really going to be a pass no matter what. But regardless of what you have, this is a play they run all the time. Seth Galina, again, did a great breakdown of it weeks and weeks and weeks ago after Miami destroyed the Lions with it. But basically what you're going to get, really good. Basically what you're going to get out of this, and I have it diagrammed up here. So you have Ingold going to the flat. You have Tyreek Hill in the slot on this side. Will go in motion and run the wheel route. And then Sherfield will run the seam. You're going to get some kind of combination out of a multitude of personnel groupings and out of a multitude of alignments. Sometimes you won't even get a full 3 guys out in the route distribution. Sometimes it'll just be 2, and it'll just be the wheel and it'll be the seam. This seam could be a hitch. It could end up turning into a post. It's going to be something that's going to get upfield right away. This wheel will sometimes be thrown early and it'll be a back shoulder throw. Sometimes it'll be a true wheel and Hill or Waddle or Sherfield will get upfield and it'll be chucked downfield. Or Tua has the option to hit Ingold on this underneath route on this play. But sometimes, again, they can vary it. Sometimes this Tyreek Hill right here, instead of being the wheel guy, sometimes he'll be the slide route. And sometimes the guy coming out of the backfield will run the wheel. They can just do a multitude. They have a multitude of options coming out of this action. But for this one, we have Tyreek Hill going in motion. He's going to run the wheel. We have Alec Ingold in the backfield in a split back alignment. He's going to run the slide route. And then you have Sherfield up top as the single receiver who will end up being a double with Hill in motion. He's going to run the seam. We'll just watch it go from this play. They run this. We're going to show you multiple looks out of this. And there you go. Boom. Ingold's there. And this is also another example. So I wanted to show this for 2 reasons. One, because Miami runs this a ton. But this is another example of an unforced error by Tua. He tries to throw the back shoulder spot to Hill, which even if he wants it, it's decently there, even though Lenoir's kind of sitting on it.
I'd argue he leveraged the space really well. Lenore
No, and that's what I'm saying. If he throws it early to Hill, it's there. But where he tries to throw it to him, I actually think Lenoir's spacing is what makes this throw because Tua, boom, and you saw it, right? Tua double clutches because he wants to make this throw. And watch right here. He goes to throw it and he sees Lenoir. He double clutches it, pumps and brings it down. And then because Lenoir is sitting on it, if he throws this inside, this is getting jumped.
Yep.
If this ball is on target. Correct. But if he just waits a half a beat longer, he can just complete to the underneath guy. And it might not be sexy. Correct. But maybe it gets you 3 yards or 2 yards or 4 yards and it's not an incompletion. So for 2 reasons. One, Tua kind of being poor in his decision-making and with some accuracy issues, but wanting to showcase this play, which we're going to look at from a variety of alignments and personnel groupings.
I will also say this is kind of the danger to the type of offense that they have and how much of it is like mentally driven and based on how the defense is defending you. Because on a play like this, you can see how well Lenoir is leveraging that space. And based on where he is, he's kind of in no man's land for Hill to make that decision. Like if he was closer and didn't, and this is part of actually what you showed earlier where Hill gets in motion. Okay, that guy on that side where he's going motion too, he's going to bail out because
correct. When Ward backed up and then came back
he's afraid of Hill in motion having a head start. You got to get off and give him that space. But because of that, he kind of sits in a no man's land where if he was off even further, Hill can decisively stop this route, and then he's wide open on the boundary like Tua wants. But he's kind of in that no man's land, and Hill's like, do I keep going with this wheel? Do I try to blow by him? And he just kind of half-asses this route, in all honesty. But that's kind of the gray area to this offense, where if it's that murky, just take the check down, because clearly you wanted Hill to stop as is for a 5-yard completion. Just take the
jump off.
two air yards and then see if he can get to 5 on his own on the ground.
The 2 air yards. Get it? See what I did? Welcome back to the show.
This is disguise coverage.
Also, it's a cool piece. So I love that you mentioned that. So for everybody playing at home, again, what did we talk about earlier when we showed the first clip? The Niners would press that single receiver side, which the Bills also did. Watching this one. So Lenore is, don't do this to me, Huddle. Oh, killing me. There we go. Yeah, forget it. So Lenore is up top. He's in press. Charvarius Ward at the bottom is not. He's in off. Watch what happens when Hill moves. All of a sudden, Ward at the bottom comes up, and now Ward is in press. Oh, there we go. And Lenore backs up because he sees Hill coming to this side. This was their plan all along. Whatever that single receiver side is, we're jamming the hell out of him. We're getting physical. We're pressing. Could have taken Ingold, but he didn't. Live to play another play. Now, this next one. So I'm going to play this one more time so everybody gets it in their brain. Because the very next play is basically the same look and the same action. Okay? Next play. So what did we have on the previous play? 2 receivers to the bottom, split backs, single receiver up top. The exact same thing on the exact next play. 2 receivers at the bottom, split backs, although not even with each other. Ingold's up a little bit. Single receiver to the top side. Notice, though, on this time, the single receiver to the top side, his split, similar. Well, he was a little closer on the first one, but, I misclicked. Now, watch. Very next play, they show that exact same RPO look. You're going to have the jet motion from Cedric Wilson here, so he's running exactly what Tyreek Hill did pre-snap on the previous play. But this time, it's not an RPO. It's not a pass. It's a trap run. So the exact same look. Oh, I'm going to fake. I'm going to go across. He's going to fake that jet motion just like Tyreek Hill did. On the last play, he went all the way across and we ran that pass. Now he's going to stop midway. He's going to come back. So we're playing games. It makes Ward jump off. Trap run. Now, showed all that not because it was a tremendously successful play. And the reason it's not is because Ebukem here, who has just been a monster since he came over from the Rams, watch him shut this down. Gets upfield, stops, comes back, boom, great read. But the idea is they'll run so much out of this look and make you think, oh, here it comes again. And then they're like, uh-oh, it's not. And this is the trap on this play. It could be a zone read. It could be a variety of things. It can end up being a screen to the other side. It could be a focus on the single receiver side on the left, and they can end up running a slant or an RPO like action with a glance route to the left. Like they can do so much out of these looks and formations, like we talked about earlier.
That's the scary part. It's that they don't have a lot of tips and tells for what they're doing on offense because it all looks the same. Like you look at this and you're like, oh, okay, another RPO. Like this isn't even an RPO. No one's running routes, but it's the same RPO look that he's given on just about every other passing play, because every passing play they have is pretty much an RPO. But that's the wild part about this offense. It's very tough to be a step ahead of them because of, how secretive they are with everything they do. It looks the same. It operates the same. It executes somewhat the same almost every time. Like
you can see the differences in like the 2 receiver side on the first play. They're a little wider. They're more condensed.
Right. Like this could tell you, oh, okay, maybe they're trying to help with the inline blocking a little bit. But like even then, like if you cheat towards that, who knows? Maybe they have a wrinkle out of that where there's a condensed set that breaks into a pass. So it's just, that's the tricky part with this offense.
They can get so tricky. I really respect the hell out of it.
And McDaniel.
Yes. Now we're going to go to play number 5. So again, another of that RPO action with that pass. This time, like we talked about, so we showed it from the first 2 times, and you had like those 2 receiver looks, the 2x1 set, and you had the split backfield. Now we have a single back look. Now we've got the 2 receiver side to the bottom. So the first time we showed this play, you had the 2 backs in the backfield, right? Ingold, again, imagine if we flipped the side like we're running to from that first time. So the first time Ingold was here and he ran the flat route out this way, right? This time, Man, this is beautiful. So this time, Hill is the slide route. You have Alec Ingold, who's in line right here. He's the wheel, and then Waddle is going to be that seam piece. And then you have the reading of the edge player for the actual RPO look. So here we go. We're going to flip the running back. We're going to move Jeff Wilson. Tua's watching, and now watch. Tua makes eye contact with the edge. He sees the edge come crashing down, so he's going to keep it. Now, again, now you've got the advantageous look. This is wide open. It's early in the route distribution.
Mm-hmm.
Just make the throw and get some yards. Ingold
and that's the
drops it.
thing. It's immediate. Like he
Correct.
knows this at the second.
It's like Josh Allen hitting the check down to the running back in the middle of the field.
It's very, very similar where actually, can you go back to the sideline?
No.
It's very similar where it's almost predetermined in the sense where you can see, obviously it's still based on that read, like you said, with the edge defender, but there's so much space with number 7 on the bottom side of the screen dropping into off. He's already in off pre-snap. You can see Tua.
It could be a check from him where he's like, screw it, I'm going to this no matter what because I have the look I want.
It absolutely could have been 100%, but you can see when Wilson goes in motion, he is specifically eyeing that side of the field and he sees that he has space to that side. And this is kind of the offside to what we saw with him on a different page with Tyreek Hill on that wheel route to the top side of the screen. Right away, he is decisive and he gets the ball to Ingold immediately because he knows, and this is the counterpoint to that, 7 is giving so much space on the bottom side of the screen. Whereas Lenoir on the top side on the first play, he was in that no man's land where it made that decision tougher to make. This is very decisive, clear as day. There is so much grass here. Get the ball to someone who can make a play with it. And Ingold gets some yards after the catch. Well, he doesn't.
Could have if he knew how to catch. Now, again, so we just
trying to get a bone.
Poor fullback. I love versatile fullbacks like Kyle Juszczyk and Ingold and what they can do. Even Ricard to a degree. But absolutely wild.
That stinks.
Right now, so again, much like we showed earlier, this is the very next play. So let's look at the formation here. What do we got? We got a 3-by-1. Here's the tight end here on this action. Single receiver side down here. Previous play, we had a 2-by-2 that with the motion turns into a 3-by-1. So now you're sitting here and you're going, okay, the 3-by-1 is on the other side. What are they going to do? So the very next play, different pre-snap alignment and route runners, but you have the same play, except Tyreek Hill on the previous play, Hill was the slide route coming across the formation, and Ingold was on the wheel. Now we have Hill coming on the wheel route. Gesicki is going to run the slide route from the backside, and then Waddle, he's still going to run that seam, and he's going to get pressed to hell by Charvarius Ward. But again, it's what we keep talking about here, that combination of something in the flat, a wheel, and a seam. And he gets to Hill decently early on this one. Again, this is a back shoulder throw that Hill ends up bailing him out with. He makes a nice one-handed catch. But the Niners try to match it with Ward following Hill, Jimmy Ward following him all the way across the field. And you just can't. Like, you're out leveraged. You're done.
You can't do that.
No, and it's a quick completion.
He's also late on it, too, with the motion. You can see he doesn't react.
Because he gets caught. He's turning to communicate to Lenoir, and then Hill takes off. And you can see him when he turns back around go, oh, crap.
Yep.
And then you even see Charvarius Ward communicates it right here. Watch him as Ward is at the bottom of the screen. He sticks his arm out right here to let him know, like, hey, that's you. Because he's going to jam the hell out of Waddle.
Yeah.
This is still early in this game. This is the first quarter. And they've run this same concept 4 times already. They run the ever-loving hell out of it. Again, like we talked about, it can come out of a variety of alignments or personnel groupings, but you, in some form or fashion, you are going to get some kind of seam action. Again, it could be, I'm just calling it the seam. It could literally be a vertical route up the seam.
Yeah, it could be a post
hitch.
To go. It could be anything to clear. Like, it could be a lot of things.
It could be a lot of things, but you're going to get that seam action. You are going to get a wheel, and you are going to get a slide route or something in the flat. So they have those options, and then they'll tag it with the run action, and maybe it actually is a genuine RPO. And you know what? If we get the right look, we're handing it off. Or it's a predetermined, no matter what, throw it. Or if you get this look, throw it. Forget what the edge is doing. Forget the, option piece or the run pass. Forget the R part in RPO and just pass the hell out of it because you're going to get this look. But what we wanted to show here, you're going to get this look from the Miami Dolphins a lot versus the Buffalo Bills. And because they do it against everybody. Good completion to Hill, a little behind him. Hill
I
bails him.
genuinely wonder, like you said, like if you get certain looks, don't even think about the run part of this. And I genuinely wonder if there's, a built-in rule like, hey, if Tyreek Hill's in motion and they have a defender trying to chase him in that motion, so it's man, just throw it to him. Like
I can see that.
I genuinely wonder if that's the case. And
I can see that.
obviously,
Like, hey, he's
it's
out
a little
leveraged. Just chuck it.
and it's a little different because that player gets out leveraged. He was late because of the communication call, and then like things could change if Hufanga is a little bit wider on this play and a little bit deeper, and he takes away that wheel route. Like maybe it's not fixed. Oh, throw it to Hill, but that kind of rule where okay, if the motion man is being followed and he's on a wheel route, like what is the rule behind this, and do we even want to run because we know we have an advantage when they're in man type of thing? Like I'm curious what that kind of rule is.
I could see that. Again, especially like there's how many checks and alerts in pre-snap checks and reads, or if you see this flash hit this thing, especially with how Tua has been coached up to be, I don't want to say robotic, but there's so many rules and setups for him to just be successful in this lane.
Right.
I could definitely see that potentially being a piece. So that's what the 49ers did, obviously, 2 weeks ago against the Miami Dolphins. We're going to go back to what the Buffalo Bills did on defense against the Miami Dolphins in week 3. And a key piece, like I mentioned before, the conversation of, what after what the Chargers and the 49ers did with press, I hope the Bills do the same, or will the Bills do the same? They already did. So if there's a blueprint for showing or slowing the Miami Dolphins offense down, the Bills already have it. This is from Robert Mays from the Athletic Football Show. Tremendous podcast with him and Nate Tice. So when the Dolphins faced the Chargers last week, the Chargers had 35% press coverage for the Chargers, 35% press coverage versus Miami. That's the second highest press coverage rate the Dolphins have faced in a game this year. Week 3 against the Bills, it was 40%. So everybody's talking about how much the Chargers were pressing the hell out of Miami. That's not even the most that they faced all year. The Bills did it. And if you think about it, because Miami's offense was on the field for not a lot of time with how much possession the Bills offense had, they were getting pressed left and right and left and right. So this first play here, you're going to get a 2-by-2 formation, which will turn into a 3-by-1 once the motion happens. And the Bills respond with Meg coverage from Christian Benford with a soft shoe press. Again, soft shoe press means you're mirroring the wide receiver on the snap rather than a true press or a kick step read. Yeah, getting physical right on him and getting on him right away. The Bills defense is in match quarters coverage here on this one. And you'll see Benford maintain physicality in the route. He's on the bottom of the screen here. This is the one early on. He gets flagged on this play. But again, you'll see, I don't know why I wrote knacking. That's not great, but whatever, doesn't matter. But you'll see Benford there. So again, Benford is backing off because it's a 2-by-2, much like what the Niners do with their rules. And then all of a sudden you get the motion. So what does Benford do? He comes up, you see the communication from DeMar Hamlin. He's got him. Soft shoe, ride him, get physical at the top. He gets a little grab. I thought this was a tough call to throw a flag on this one.
I'll be honest. I think he was being lazy. He played this really well. I think
not lazy at the top.
Hand exactly the hand on him through the stem of the route, no problem. But you are in front of him, like you're in phase.
You have position.
You did a great job through the entire stem of this route. You just don't have to grab once he breaks it off at the top.
No.
I think this was great coverage. Just a little detail where he got lazy and didn't trust his feet.
And then if you even look at the top here, Taron Johnson coming in motion. Your boy Taron Johnson right here. He's using a catch technique. So he's not getting physical at the line, but you'll see him get physical mid-route, get hands on. So again, the Bills were physical. They either pressed the line or they pressed mid-route. And this is week 3. This is very early for Christian Benford and Kyer Elam. They're both rookies, and they're coming out here being like, you know what, cool, we're going to challenge the hell out of these Miami receivers. I think it got lost in the conversation because everything was so, the heat and the sun and how the game ended and everybody, dropping out because of injury or heat stroke or whatever the hell. And I think that narrative took, not that it was incorrect or shouldn't be talked about, but that narrative started to take more precedence than what the Bills defense did. But again, sample size was involved. Maybe if Miami had more possession, they throw all over the Bills or run them out of the gym. Who knows, potentially. But
I got one thing to add on this.
No.
top of the screen gets me every time. Top of the screen, Elam here. This was kind of one of the criticisms we had on him early in the season, kind of just giving too much space on these routes, too much cushion. And specifically, that's not my issue with this play, but I think a point to drive home is how important hip discipline is against the Dolphins, because if you show your hips as a defensive back too early, they will make you pay and they will break it off to the other side.
They also say hips don't lie.
They do. They have said that before.
Just one person says
that. But you can see here he's aggressively hips turn to the inside, and he's going to have to speed turn to make a play on this out route or corner route, whatever it is. But it is open because of the combination of cushion that he gives the wide receiver and the fact that his hips are faced to the inside of the field, and it's an outbreaking route. And this is kind of to that point of, I don't know if these are locked routes for the Dolphins, and I know they have a lot of options off that wheel seam flat action that they have. I don't know how much so for a play like this, but that's kind of the idea of you don't want to get caught being so overzealous with where your hips are. You know, if you're aggressively showing hips inside, like if they have an option, they're Waddle and Hill, they're going to break it off quickly to the outside, and you're not going to have a chance, no matter how effective you're going to speed turn or whatever it is and how fluid your hips are. If
hips don't lie and hips inside.
It's true. You know, that I don't even need to.
I do wonder with like, cause so as Elam is watching Tua here, and this is as Hill is breaking out.
Right.
And I would
over at that point.
I would like to see, like, if Tua made this throw, I would love to see like how quickly Elam breaks on this based on his hip position and based on his body position. I also love, again, he's
just at a disadvantage right there.
He is. This isn't as deep as Warner, but when we talk about match coverage, watch Tremaine Edmonds. He's picking up number 3, whoever comes inside here. Watch Tremaine Edmonds pick up his man. Clamps.
Yep. All over that one. I mean, most routes on this play were matched pretty well. So it was a good job.
But this is what you'll see if he's sitting, this is fantastic. But also if we're running here and Gesicki continues upfield
and like someone else is crossing, then he's got to have eyes.
Does he get caught? Does he get matched? Is he going to have to drop off and pick off the underneath guy? Right. I didn't mean to continue dragging that. I made a whole mess. But yeah, the match coverage piece for the Buffalo Bills, again, similar to what you had with the San Francisco 49ers. Now, let's move on to our next play here. I'm going to go to play 3 here for the Buffalo Bills. So this is 3rd and 2. So again, situation is going to play a role. You're in 3rd and 2. You want to close down the space. You want to give no quarter, not coverage, no space, no room. You want to close everything down, squeeze windows, anything and everything. Watch what we get from the Bills on this play. Again, 3rd and 2, you have press across the board. And like I mentioned there, granted, plays a role. But look, Benford, Taron Johnson, Kyer Elam in the face of everyone, line head up. Matt Milano makes an amazing play. Stop on 3rd down. So granted, this is a run. But if this is a pass, this is straight up press man for everybody.
And everyone's sticky. You can say even Edmonds is taking the fast motion out of the backfield. So I think I remember watching this play and like early on in the season, and I was like, oh, okay, the Bills have confidence on 3rd and 2 to go press 2-man. And this is week 3. And I'm like, oh, okay, this is not something I was expecting for the Bills. And like, this is kind of the idea of, you know, why you draft a guy like Elam and a guy like Benford, the ability to get physical at the line of scrimmage, but also have the recovery speed for guys like Hill and Waddle to, you know, if they get past you on the press, can you make up for it? And those safeties on the back end, can Hamlin and I guess this time around Poyer, can you help on your deep halves? So I think seeing this on tape as fans, you should be encouraged to know that the Bills have the confidence in the horses that they have to run an aggressive play call really on 3rd and 2. And obviously this isn't a blitz or anything. It's not aggressive on that end, but it's aggressive from the back end. What you're expecting those guys to do on the back end in press, knowing, okay, you got help from your 2 safeties. That's it though. You got to be physical and you got to be sticky. Yeah.
You got to win. And that's a scary proposition. Like, dude, here has a 2-way go.
Yep.
This is freaking Jalen Waddle. Like, right. That can get scary. Like, I would not be comfortable.
Tyreek Hill, like
Hill's coming in and Hill's coming out of the backfield. So like, even if I mean, I think the advantage potentially based on spacing, but even if Tua keeps it and checks it down to Hill, and all of a sudden it's Hill versus Edmonds in all this space, and all he needs to do is get 2 yards.
I'm not
I mean, granted,
necessarily
7. No,
expecting Edmonds to make a play, but I'd hope he
it's tough.
does,
I would
with
hope.
the picture we have right there.
It's tough.
Yeah.
So this one I just wanted to show again. Christian Benford and Kyrie Elam were the corners for this game. This is the game after Dane Jackson hurt his neck against the Tennessee Titans. So Dane is out. Trey White is still out at this point. He's not even a thought. Benford gets hurt. He hurts his hand. Jamarcus Ingram comes in. So now you're thinking, okay, well, Jamarcus Ingram is in. They're going to have to stop with, this potential action.
Whatever the game plan is.
Yeah. Oh, we got to stop doing this. Like, they're going to have to tweak some things. They're not going to be as physical. False. Jamarcus Ingram is actually even more physical. Granted, that's his game. But watch Jamarcus Ingram on this play. You've got Ingram on the bottom. Watch him press the ever-loving hell out of Tyreek Hill. He just jacks him up and forces him inside.
Yeah.
I love just how physical. And again, you get that opposite. So look where Elam is up top. So Elam up top, he's in that press initially, but he gives more of a soft reroute at the top of the screen. So you've got that press look from both corners, but whereas watch the difference on the snap. Ingram comes forward and he makes contact. Elam is more that soft shoe piece.
Mirror
He
match.
gives more of a subtle reroute, pushes his man inside, and then is following for coverage pieces, sees the over coming. This is the hit where Milano pushes Tua late, and then Tua gets the concussion. That was a back injury, I guess. But I was making a joke, and I guess no one got it because you didn't laugh. That's cool. Whatever. I'm alone. Doesn't matter. Hips don't lie. Should have done the show by myself.
That was a fast escalation.
I was just super jarred. No one cares about me. But again, like, I think that goes to the game plan piece. This is why I wanted to show it. Like, you're already in there with 2 rookie corners who are down on the depth chart. Now you've got a guy who you never thought was going to see snaps, and he's lined up on Tyreek Hill, and you're still like, no, just go jam him. Get in press and actually jam him. No, don't press and bail. Like, jam him. Boom. Like, physical. And on the other side, you got Kyrie Elam, being more of a soft piece. I also love this. Watch Taron Johnson. Taron Johnson drops on this play. So this is cover 2. Taron Johnson is playing as the deep half player, and Jaquan Johnson plays as the hook curl defender. So instead of your 2 safeties splitting the field and being, 1 half and 1 half, you get Taron Johnson and DeMar Hamlin doing it. I love when the Bills do this. I think it's just creative. It's a little coverage tweak. Look at it. Ooh, pretty.
What would you call something like that?
I still call it cover 2.
Oh, no, I was hoping you would say disguise coverage. I tried to tee you up. I tried to tee you up, man.
I thought you asked a serious question. Like, what cover is that? I was cover 2.
I was trying to be serious about it. That's on
We're not hitting with our jokes right
now.
No,
I didn't facilitate that well. That's
report.
I will say, not a schematic piece towards game planning, but an encouraging piece that Bills fans should hang their hat on relative to Leslie Frazier. A play like this and how they disguise this coverage, bringing a guy like Jaquan Johnson down to the second level to play a hook curl zone versus a deep half, and bring Teron to play a deep half. Like, that's how you play to your personnel and the strength of those individual players that you have. So I think that's a very encouraging piece for, people that haven't necessarily picked up on little tidbits like that. Like, that's a little thing that should give you some encouragement on what we have with this coaching staff. Like, that is truly getting the most out of your players, both disguising coverages schematically, but also putting your players in positions that they're most likely to succeed.
Yeah, set your players up for success. I think that's very, 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 very well said. Now, this last play that we're going to show here, keep in mind for this one, this is something, again, Miami loves to do. We're going to get some leverage with speed. We're going to get a clear out on the first post, and then we're going to get an opportunity for Tyreek Hill to come in behind out of that coverage that's cleared out.
Can I add that? This is where the relation to hips
don't lie.
Yeah, the hips don't lie comes back in, where if you're too overzealous and you're showing your hip direction too early, it could come to bite you. This is that play. Yeah,
there's tons of gators in Miami, and you'll get bit real quick. You don't want to get bit. They're also snakes. Some are poisonous, some are not. You don't want to get bit if your hips aren't telling the truth. there's a chance you're going to get bit.
They'll come after you. Those
I'm changing the name of this
reptiles.
episode to Bills versus Dolphins. Hips don't lie. Everybody's gonna be like, "What?"
Who are these guys?
So you're gonna. What are they doing? Is this
Shakira fans.
I was gonna say, is this a Shakira podcast? So you're gonna get the motion into a 2x2, or not into a 2x2. You're gonna get the motion from Hill into that 2x2 with a little bit of the hip action there so it's not even a 2x2, it's 3. You're gonna get leverage created with speed. The Bills are gonna play outside and deep. That's the most important part for this. Watch what Taron Johnson does. Watch what Kyrie Elam does, because it's gonna tie into what the Los Angeles Chargers did in the next clip we are going to show. Watch what these two defenders do who are highlighted right now. So you're gonna get the motion from Tyreek Hill. And all of a sudden, you just have a single tight end on that side. It becomes basically a 3x1 because Ingold is hipped off, but it's only a 2-man route. Hill goes. Look where they're playing. Deep. Respecting that over the top. Taron Johnson is a little shaded inside, but because he's opened up to this side, he's playing like he's leveraging over the top. He's making sure he doesn't get beat. And again, to his point, like if we started from the beginning, look at the pace that Tyreek Hill is coming with across this field. Like
Exactly. You have to match that. Yeah, he has a head start. You don't.
Boom. And look at, what did we show earlier with and we're going to show it against the Chargers. What do you see here on this play? You get this first route that's going to clear and create all this space. And what is Tua? Tua's a window thrower. He gets this window, and all he has to do is hit the wide open guy who literally has tons of space, because this has cleared out all this, and all he has to do is throw to a spot. And this throw, honestly, isn't even, I don't want to knock it. Hill has to settle. This isn't thrown, and he catches it in rhythm. Like, he just settles. Tua throws to a spot. Hill catches it. Boom. And this is going to be the opposite of what we see with what the Chargers did. The Bills played more outside and over the top, whereas the Chargers played underneath and inside, which we're going to show in a minute.
This is another example, too, of where that second level depth comes into play. And obviously they get brought forward by the run action.
By that run action.
But I mean, we saw that once from Warner, and that's kind of the difference where it's like, okay, you take those 1 or 2 read steps forward, but how are you recovering backwards? Is your head on a swivel? Can you identify the routes around you? And obviously there's only 2 routes. There's literally only 2 routes. So if you see nothing, just bail. Bail and get in that window. And we know how much Edmonds can impact passing lanes. So I hope we've learned from this, or a play like this. And obviously it's really tough in the moment, especially with run action, because it's going to make it more difficult for that second level to really influence the passing windows. But I think this is a prime example to show how even when that middle of the field gets open by these concepts to clear it out, the second level can still have the final say about it.
Yes. And everything, again, is all clear outs for this team. So if we look, this ends up being basically like 2 posts, or kind of a post and an in-breaker, depending on how you're viewing Hill's route. But what this could also be, this could just be a dagger concept where you're going to get a vertical from him, and Hill's going to come this way, and then he's going to run in behind. Everything that they have is based on, let's use this speed, let's threaten defenses for it, let's make them go, oh crap, and then you run somebody in behind it somehow, or into that space where there's all this oodles and oodles of opportunity because you've cleared out this coverage, which is, again, what happens on this play. Elam goes with his man, the safety goes with him, Hill turns Johnson inside out because Johnson, again, has to honor, he's going vertical, crap. Boom. And the underneath coverage gets sucked in. Now, let's compare that to what the Los Angeles Chargers did on this past Sunday night primetime game, right? That got flexed. I have so many things that are in my brain at this point. We're going to show this. We're going to show a couple plays from the Chargers, but we're going to show this play. I'm going to go to the last one first. So now, similar action. You have Asante Samuel Jr., my love, at the bottom of the screen here. And you've got Jasir Taylor?
I think it's Taylor, yeah.
Yes, Jasir Taylor coming across. Watch how they play. So what we just saw what the Bills did with their leverage, watch how the Chargers play this play. Ben Solak did a great job breaking this down as well. Look where they are. Inside leverage and underneath. Inside leverage and underneath. So now what do you get from the Dolphins? Cool, you're 2 in breakers. There's nowhere to go. There is nowhere to go.
Everyone's taking that leverage away from you by staying inside of those routes and knowing that they like to go inside, so you cheat that direction.
Yes.
But that's actually devil's advocate why I led with the idea that maybe this is the week they throw the curveball and they start running outs.
And this is something we talked about, right? Like, so you're playing the tendency in the scouting, right? Okay, they love these in breakers, but what you're also playing is, okay, pre-snap, this ball's on the far hash. You're going to play with inside leverage because, and I'm not saying it like to knock Tua and not even considering the weather, which we're going to talk about in a bit. You're daring Tua. I dare you to make this throw. I don't know why I curved there at the end. I fell off the trackpad. I dare you to make this throw. I dare you. This is 5, 10, 15, 20. Where he would throw it is probably here. This is a 25-yard out route just from a vertical perspective, let alone all the yard versus that coverage. Also, it's 25 yards like straight. This isn't taking into account like the yardage from an angular perspective, which makes it even harder. And you have to angle it, you have to time it, you have to layer this throw. So I think the Chargers are also saying, we know your tendencies, we've studied the tape, but also like, bro, I dare you to make an outbreaker on this. Right. I dare you to try and complete that. And they don't.
Yeah, it's definitely the percentages to play. If you're the Bills defense, you would rather see a great play from Tua in that regard and force him to make a lower percentage throw, right? And that's for any quarterback too. Yeah. Like that's just objectively a harder throw versus throwing to the opposite hash relative to the field side boundary. Like it's just objectively a harder throw for every quarterback. So,
and especially for a window thrower who's used to, Tua is used to on this play. He gives this action. You watch Tua in the backfield. He's used to setting up and being like, okay, somebody's going to be super open. Let me just throw it to this window.
Get rid of it. Yep. He's going to be open. Right?
And it's not there. Very fair. And then these other two clips just showing how the Chargers defended Miami. So the Niners went heavier zone. The Bills went heavier zone as well. The Chargers used more man coverage, specifically press man. Mike Davis, that's his strength. He's bigger than pretty much all of the Dolphins receivers, and he got hands. Dude is a monster, and he got hands on everybody early. We have Davis highlighted here. Just watch him get physical right with Waddle right away. And actually, this is kind of similar to our play. Gesicki motions. So watch what Gesicki does. So Waddle's running that seam. Gesicki is going to that wheel kind of action. Here comes Tyreek Hill on the little flat route. Also, what's a nice piece? Watch Khalil Mack right here on the outside. He's getting red on this play. But watch him step inside to honor that run action. Then he stops, sees what's happening, and he gets a piece of Tyreek Hill. Just a little bit, just to trip him up.
I was thinking that in preparation for this show. I mean, as important as all of the aspects we've been talking about are, I think that read edge defender is going to be so important because of what he can do to literally take out that beneath route and also be the read man on all of these RPOs.
And Rousseau's length is going to help him so much.
Exactly. He doesn't necessarily have to be aggressive. He can just be like, all right, I'm just going to sneak like into this passing lane so you think you can throw it, but you actually can't because my arms are so long. But also, he could do that in the same regard of, okay, we know you don't love running the football and you aren't that efficient doing it. I'm not going to crash. I'm going to make you guys hand the ball off. Yeah. And maybe that just works to the Bills' advantage, feeds them to Daquan Jones.
And that's a tweak I wonder if the Dolphins lean into a little bit. Like the Chargers' 25th rush defense in terms of DVOA. I thought they would run more in this game. I know their secondary was banged up, but their front is also banged up and they haven't defended the run well. I thought they'd lean more into the run. That is a potential tweak if we're talking about what the Dolphins could do potentially in terms of countering some of the things, they've seen. Will Tua take more of those short throws, the under routes or the quick routes? Will he look to operate more in terms of staying ahead of the sticks versus going for those big chunks like they used to? Do you see more of Sherfield and Gesicki because teams are game planning for Waddle and Hill? Do you see more Cedric Wilson? The Chargers gave a lot of attention to Waddle and Hill. And like we just said, do they potentially run the ball more and try and, pick their poison that way, or just for tendency breaker aspect, then you start to build in more play action. They have options. Again, we get more RPO action on this last clip we wanted to show here from the Chargers in this game. What's nice is these two guys up here, Mr. Davis and Alohi Gilman. Yes, man, their names are Aloha Gilman, I think, or Alohi. I don't know.
No, I think it's Alohi.
I don't know. Names are confusing and tough at times. They don't lie, unlike hips. Watch what you're going to get. Nice little switch. Underneath slide route. Again, another play where what do you got? Some kind of aspect of a vertical piece, a vertical action here, a wheel, and somebody coming on the slide route. They run this concept a sugar ton nonstop against no matter what team they have. Van Noy crashes hard. Sherfield just doesn't break it down. It's also not a great throw from Tua. Again, missed that underneath. Also, Gilman is right there.
That's where the arms in the face from Van Noy, like that's part of it. Like that edge defender, exactly. That edge defender is going to play a massive role in taking away those options. Because, I mean, hypothetically, if he was throwing to the wheel route, that's the same passing lane. You know, that's the same window that he's trying to throw through. So I think that read edge defender is going to play a massive part in this.
Bro, I just came back to check the chat. Man,
which
Jason came for your soul. Jason said, do you have a clip of Herbert so Kendall can once again fawn over him and betray Josh Allen by saying Josh stinks and Herbert is my one and only love? Whoa.
Jason gets it. Jason
does get it.
Clearly a follower. He clearly follows our work. So respect.
Yes.
You can
for everybody who doesn't know the inside joke there, Kendall didn't say those exact words, but
it's Kendall a bit hyperbolic here, but I
enjoy
appreciate
himself some Justin Herbert. But again, this is a real nice piece. You've seen so many teams back off and bail, and that wheel route just has so much space. And the Chargers, again, they challenged all night. This is a nice banjo coverage. They switch off here in terms of who picks up who, so that way they're not out leveraged. Tua can't hit something right away. Actually, they don't even banjo this piece. They just flow over the top.
But that's still part of it. Like the idea of the mental side
and
to
the
this
angle
and the communication. It's so much more than just, okay, press this guy and it disrupts the timing. Like, cool, you press the seam route. That's really just trying to clear everything out for everyone else. Like, pressing that, sure, it's important because like he can't get to the next level quick, but what does it do for the rest of the play? Like that doesn't take away the beneath. That doesn't take away the wheel. Exactly.
No,
and that's to hit all of it.
You see Hill right here, like he'll get this ball sometimes if he's open. So you have to close this down. And then Tua, like we've shown, he'll throw this quick and back shoulder it right here. Or if he's got time and speed, and this is Hill or Waddle, they'll let that wheel develop and then I'll hit you back over the top. Or again, if both of those are covered, what? How many clicks I had?
No.
Oh, more comments. I didn't say. Pretty sure that was an exact quote and not hyperbolic, but I don't think we need to take time to fact check it. I like where Jason's head is at. Jason gets it. I appreciate that. That's a great comment. Or he can hit this slide route underneath. Gilman has a chance to make the play, even if this is complete. But there's what the point of all of it is, they run these concepts over and over, and it's not because they're not creative. It's because they're tremendously effective. They get to them from multiple alignments, multiple personnel groupings. They know how to use them. They know how to attack. And we're seeing defenses now answer a little bit and challenge the Dolphins, but we're also seeing poor execution. So I think the Bills will challenge in a similar way like they did in week 3, potentially using some of these tweaks that we showed for the Chargers and we showed for what the 49ers did here. But a lot of it's going to come down to how they execute, what the game plan is on defense, but how sharp Tua is, where I also think the weather comes into play. If it's windy, how cold it is, how much snow there is, if it's a slick field because of the snow, if there's a decent amount of snow on the field. We all know the old proverbial adage, like usually, slicker, or if there's footing issues on the field for whatever reason, that favors the offense because they know where they're going. Defenders have to read and react. Right. Does that help Tua a little bit? What does the pass rush look like? There's so many options. Bills are going to need to get pressure on Tua. Can they without Von Miller and against the Miami Dolphins line that has struggled as of late? What does their coverage look like on the back end? How much man do they play? How much press do they play again like they did in week 3? But is it more zone focused versus being more man focused potentially? And really seeing what they do. It's going to be interesting to see how they defend the Miami Dolphins offense in terms of what they can do up front and on the back end and what role the weather plays in it.
Yeah, 100%. I definitely think the battle in the trenches is going to be a lot in this game. Not just Bills defense against the Dolphins offense. I think both sides of this, it's going to be very much, all right, what's happening in the trenches? Because if the Bills can get to Tua, if the Dolphins decide to pivot to more of a running game, like if the Bills can mitigate that or just completely take it away, I think a lot of this game is going to stem from the battle in the trenches. And obviously that gets exacerbated by the weather too. I mean, everything that happens in the trenches is going to be that much more important if you can't throw the football as well as you can in, a dome.
Oh, absolutely. Two quick plays I wanted to show from a defensive standpoint, just to bring back to some of the games that the Dolphins defense played with Josh Allen and the Bills offense and how much they stressed the hell out of them. I think about these plays all the time because I love Javon Holland and I just love the execution on this. This is the Holland strip sack early in this game. I want you to look at a couple of things here. Look at all the pre-snap communication from Miami. Look at all of it. Everybody communicating. I legitimately believe that Josh Boyer, the Miami defensive coordinator, he spent all offseason waiting for this matchup. They were so prepared for this Bills offense, and they threw everything at the Bills from a pressure standpoint and a coverage standpoint. You see, again, as soon as the Bills start to check, they're already communicating. Then Allen checks, look at everybody. Everybody knows coverage is changing. The fronts are changing. Baker's communicating. Holland's communicating, almost to the point that I think like these signals are fake and they're just mocking it, but they're actually really communicating. And then Holland comes off, gets the sack. You get that cover zero look, and that's what happens. You get the blitz, you get the strip sack. Now, later in the game, so this was the first quarter, 5 minutes and 19 seconds of the first quarter. Later in the third quarter, not the same amount at the line of scrimmage as you had before. You're going to get more Miami communication pre-snap. They're going to show cover zero again. This time there's only 7 at the line of scrimmage. There was 8 at the line of scrimmage on the previous play. But here comes Javon Holland again. Coming down from the safety spot, comes down, communicating. Now he's on the left edge. On the previous play, he was on the right edge, but they're still showing a cover zero look. They're still showing that pressure look. Watch Javon Holland and watch what the Dolphins do. So everything is showing pressure. They're communicating. They're barking. They're communicating. He's on the left edge. On the snap, they're going to drop to cover 3, and Javon Holland becomes the post safety. And he runs like he takes a good angle to the post to the point that if Allen throws this to Diggs, he's got a chance to make a play on the ball and make the tackle right away. Like, just look at how, again, taxing. You're getting a similar look. Uh-oh, here comes that blitz again. Here comes that blitz. Psych. Just kidding. Psych, we're actually only rushing 4. This is actually a simulated pressure. We're not bringing a cover zero blitz. It's a simulated pressure. And what did it do? It creates the free rusher. So the Bills are going to slide the protection to the right. Singletary is going to be the release. He's not going to pick up Phillips, which the Bills did earlier. They got a touchdown to Devin Singletary off this in the red zone. So this was the Bills' adjustment for it. But again, it plays into the Dolphins' hands. Like, oh, you're thinking like this huge blitz is coming? Nope. We're only rushing 4. We're going to get a free runner, and we have the coverage number advantage. Like, this was just beautiful from Miami in and out.
Right. And that plays to that point that I was talking about Cole Beasley earlier with the simulated pressures. Like, this is the example where maybe you can do something a little bit different with your protection and you can keep Singletary in because you know that you have a quick hot route option in Cole Beasley somewhere else. So that's kind of a perfect example to show visually how it can change things. And Singletary can pick up that rusher, that free rusher on the left, which I believe was Jalen Phillips, and still have the rest of the offensive line sliding to the right and have as many routes as you want to have out there. So you can give Josh a lot of options in case all of those rushers are still coming.
Very fair. Very well said. Kendall, we covered a ton on this episode. As we start to wind down a little bit, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention another matchup piece focusing on the Bills offense versus the Dolphins defense. Christian Wilkins, I know a lot of fans don't like him. He's a bit of a interesting character with how he plays the game, both before the snap and after the snap. But he is having an absolute monster of a season. He's second in the entire NFL in stops. He's also second in stop percentage amongst – there's 529 players in the entire NFL that have at least 20% of run defense snaps in the NFL. He's second amongst all of them in stop percentage. He's second out of 529. He has an average depth of tackle of 1.8. He's tied for 11th in tackles versus the run. He also has 4 sacks and 23 pressures. If you watch them play the Niners and you watch them play the Chargers these past couple of weeks, 2, heavily televised games nationally, he dominated up front. He was getting penetration. He sheds blockers. He gets in the backfield in the blink of an eye, like with quick swims, quick arm overs. His ability to slant and penetrate, just be forceful. He is a monster up front. Seiler is good. Phillips is having a good year. Bradley Chubb has kind of fizzled a little bit, but still has a bunch of talent. I think they have a big matchup advantage up front versus the Bills' offensive line, a group that has struggled and has shown vulnerability everywhere, but specifically three positions. You know, Saffold has struggled at times. Bates has struggled at times. We'll see how healthy Bates is if he even plays. Spencer Brown has been extremely mercurial, and it for me right now is a liability at times at right tackle. I think Miami's a big matchup advantage for their defensive line versus the offensive line, and it scares me.
Yeah, 100%. I completely agree. It'll be nice to have Mitch Morse fully healthy for this game, especially for those simulated pressure looks that we'll be getting. I mean, having his communication up front is definitely going to be a big positive for the Bills. But even with that, I still agree. I think on paper, I'm more confident in the Dolphins' defensive line to get the better of the Bills' offensive line there. Little callback to Christian Wilkins' ADOT. He said it's 1.8.
His average depth of tackle.
It's 1.8.
Yeah.
That's wild because I bet you that's been
because he's chasing down guys.
Increased because he chases down so many people way beyond the line of scrimmage because his motor just doesn't quit. Like I bet you,
because he's got 11 total tackles he's 11th in total tackles versus the run because he gets everywhere, backfield, downfield.
I bet you if you eliminate, like if he just didn't have a motor and he didn't make those tackles down the field, he'd be at like 1.3, which is wild.
He's having an absolute monster of a season. Kendall, this was a monster of an episode. Before anyone starts to leave, I know people start to tune out as we go through outros. If you are here, please drop a like on this video. We still have over 130 live viewers right now. If you enjoyed this content, please drop a like. It goes a sincerely long way towards helping us to track and trend in front of more eyes and ears. If you're watching this later and you're still here, cool. Please drop a like on this video. But please, everybody here now live riding with us, please drop a like. I know it's corny to ask for that, but it goes a long way towards helping us to track and trend in front of more eyes and ears. So please
also
drop a like.
Helps with my Capri Sun money.
So. It does. More likes equals more Capri Sun money for Kendall, so he can respect the pouch and just drink all that high fructose goodness. I was say glutinous. That's not a word.
I mean,
it could be. But please drop a like on this video if you're watching here on YouTube live right now, or if you're watching later. If you rode with us live, thank you so much for being with us live here on this episode of Disguised Coverage. If you did not watch live and you're watching later, thank you very much for your post-live viewing, download, listen, whatever have you. If you are listening on one of the podcasting apps or platforms like Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please drop a rating and a review if you would be so kind on this show. Please subscribe as well on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Subscribe here to Disguised Coverage on YouTube. Again, subscriptions are awesome. Likes are tremendously helpful. Reviews tremendously helpful as well. If you enjoyed this content, please and thank you. If you didn't enjoy this content, you hated it, try and ruin someone's day that you hate by recommending the show to them. If you did enjoy it, tell your family and friends and loved ones all about it. Word of mouth is still tremendously helpful. Thank you very much for everybody who rode with us live on this episode. Kendall, thank you very much to you. I genuinely could not have done this episode without you. It was awesome to get the band back together for a little bit and dive into some film for a tremendously important game for the AFC as a whole, but especially for the AFC East. The Dolphins, if they lose this game, they're 8-6. Now they're looking potentially on the outside in. If the Chargers win, now they fall behind them. The Bills are fighting for that 1 seed. This game has a lot. Yes, how the turntables. This game has a lot of implication for both teams and the conference as a whole. Kansas City's going to be watching this game. There's a lot on the line. So I was excited to be able to dive into the depths of this matchup and to do it with someone who I truly value like yourself. So thank you for joining me. Thank you for all the kind words. Yeah, you're welcome. Once we get off air, I'm going to tell you how terrible you are. Thank you to everybody for giving us kind words in the chat right now. It's tremendously appreciated. Again, thank you very much for riding with us live. Thank you very much for watching later, listening later, whatever have you. Please drop a like, rate, review, subscribe. Take care of yourselves, your family, your friends, and loved ones. Be kind to one another. Stay safe. If you're going to the game this weekend, have a ball. It's going to be cold. Yell things at the Dolphins and make life hell for them in Buffalo. We appreciate you folks more than you will possibly know. We will see you next week. Godspeed. And as always, go Bills.